Okay, well, we're at the top of the hour here, so thanks everyone for joining us today. My name's Mike Smitherman with Metric Insights. I've got Marius Moscovici here with me today. Hey, Marius.
Hey, Mike.
So today, title of our webinar is Beyond the Hype: The Real Impact of AI on Business Intelligence. And I guess unintentionally, Marius, this is sort of a topical subject with what went on with Google and Gemini last week. I'm sure you read that, right?
Yeah, and I mean those of you that don't on the call that don't know, Google released a new LLM model, Gemini, last week, and that they claim was better than GPT-4, and the big news that the big splash included this video that showed. The model responding to almost a video in real time. It was reminiscent of how HAL 9000 from 2001. Those of you that have watched that movie, and it turned out that all of that was sort of I wouldn't say fabricated, but essentially compiled and edited, and that the model really didn't do a lot of those things in the way that it was presented, and that caused that overhyping caused a huge backlash, where instead of everyone focusing on the benchmarks and the fact that they actually performed very well on a number of benchmarks compared to GPT-4, everyone was focused on why there was misleading hype around that. So certainly we've hit peak hype.
Right, there you go. So yeah, today, yeah, we want to talk about AI as it's relating to what's going on in the BI space, and particularly what we're doing here at Metric Insights with the portal offering that we have. A couple of housekeeping things. Obviously, we are recording this, so we'll send it out afterwards. Feel free to enter questions in the Q&A or chat window. We'll get to those and get them answered. But Marius, I'll hand it over to you to start.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. So let's dive in here and talk about kind of how AI is impacting business intelligence, kind of from a non-hyped perspective, right? And so to start with that, it's useful to think about sort of this unfulfilled promise of self-service in BI. So, I've been in business intelligence for a really long time, probably over 25 years now, and during that entire time, there was this promise hanging out there that we would have self-service, right? Self-service has always been what people want. You obviously want your users to be able to get answers to their questions, and you want that done in a way where they do not require an analyst to hold their hand while they're doing it, right? And so ever since probably the very first dashboard that was created by the very first tool, this was the mantra of business intelligence. And largely, if you look at your organization today, most organizations, if you survey users, they're just not really performing self-service very effectively. And it's important to understand kind of a little bit about why, and then through that lens, we can see a little bit about how AI can really help us in this a very difficult task. So the analogy I want you to consider kind of when you think about this is that, getting to self-service for a typical user is a little bit like climbing a mountain, right? So, and you say, well, what am I talking about? Well, think about this think about this as Mount Everest, and you've got to get to the top. And now for you as an analyst, or for if you have a team of analysts, for those folks, they're like those Sherpas that can just go up Mount Everest 100 times a year. It's no problem. They can even carry people's packs. It's a totally easy for them, right? They just live at high altitudes. It's not a big deal. But if you look at your typical end user, somebody who's maybe using analytics on a more casual basis, actually getting an answer to their question, it feels like climbing this mountain. And it does so because there are multiple steps in their journey in order to get there, and each step is perilous. So just like climbing a mountain, it feels difficult, right? People climb mountains because it's difficult, but them it feels difficult and they don't necessarily want it to be. And then the second thing is they can't just go willy-nilly about it. They've got to sort of take a very predefined path, right? Just like you would if you were going up the mountain. You've got to go through different base camps in order to reach the peak. Otherwise, you don't make it. So let's think for a moment about what does that mean? I'm going to follow this analogy a bit, right? The first sort of base camp that you need to reach as a regular user is you've got to be able to make sure that you can discover the right dashboard or report to look at your analytic, right? To answer your question. So, and this might be like a, well, why is that hard? Question. Well, it's hard for most users because if you go into a typical BI environment, whether it's Tableau or Power BI or MicroStrategy, there are tons of reports that are duplicative. There are reports, then dashboards that kind of the multiple dashboards that cover the same topic, but through a slightly different lens with different filter criteria. There are things that are obsolete. And so for somebody coming in and trying to figure out like what reporting object do I use for this to answer this question, if they haven't answered that question before, if they're new to the group, or if they're new to that particular question, it's not obvious, and that's that in and of itself, it can be a difficult journey for them. Then if they did find the right report, then the next sort of hill they've got to climb is to figure out like what is it telling them, right? So how do they interpret those sales numbers they see on there, or the financial details, or how this, how is this particular number measured? What does it mean? And what are the other reports that are using that same definition? Can I take these two reports together and answer my question? Because or so that context is not a trivial thing for people to understand. And oftentimes it's missing from reporting when people are looking at it. And if they don't understand the context, they don't know how to interpret the numbers, and they don't know if those numbers and that dashboard can actually answer the question in the way that they want. And then if they get through that, if they really understand how that dashboard is computing the numbers, what are the rules that are being used, only then can they really dive into the data and do the analysis. And so they might take that dashboard, apply the right filters, or look through a dashboard with multiple visualizations and try to determine, which is the right visualization to answer this question. How do I manipulate that visualization to get my answer? And then work through that in order to get the answer to the question that they started with. Right. And then they're basically have finally answered the question. So again, trivial for a typical analyst because they know that path. They're those Nepalese Sherpas. But for a typical business user, this is a non-trivial, high effort activity. And what happens is that if they wander off this path at all, if they struggle and they can't get to that next base camp, well, they end up calling the Sherpa. They end up calling in the analyst to help guide them, right? And in doing so, you've basically had a self-service fail, right? Because now instead of them figuring it out, the analyst has to explain it to them. They have to go figure out what to do. They're spending time on it, and you no longer have a self-service experience for your user. So AI ultimately, I think, has an opportunity to solve this, but it's a solve at the various steps that we're looking at. So let's break that down or unpack it and look a little more closely at, first of all, what does that journey involve, and how, and for within those steps, how can AI play a pivotal role, right? So let's think of each of these base camps and take them individually. And we'll start from maybe the base camp 3, when you're doing the analysis, the end of the journey, right? Because that's where you're using the BI tools at your disposal, right? And with both, it's Tableau and Power BI. I'm using those as examples because they're the most probably prevalent examples that people have of BI tools they're using today. For both of these today, there are AI offerings that have been integrated into their solutions, and they take two forms. They have there's AI offerings to explain data. In other words, to be able to say, I'm going to I'm going to be able to guide the analysis that I'm looking at. So I'm instead of looking at a particular chart, I want to be able to explain it by asking some English questions and seeing the results. And then there's the narrative aspect of it, where I'm looking at a chart. Can AI help me summarize that information so that instead of trying to understand visually what that trend is saying or understand the particular components that are driving that trend, then I'm using the AI agent within the tool to be able to tell me what the key drivers are of the trend, what are the key what is the trend itself that's relevant. right? And these all come with different labels and different tools. Tableau has explained data and data stories. Power BI has an overall Fabric infrastructure where everything is built on top of Fabric. And then there's this, Copilot experience. Everything in Microsoft is now Copilot. It's AI related, but within Power BI, and you can use it to be able to, create reporting and ask questions about the data and so forth. And these, if you haven't had a chance to play with them, assuming you're using the hosted version of these solutions, you can certainly try them. And generally speaking, you'll find that they do provide some value, although they are still in the early stages, in the sense that you can quickly exhaust what you're able to do with this, and that it's not a perfect solution by all means, but it gives you a gleam or insight into where this is going, and indeed it can help cover some self-service scenarios where otherwise a user would be stuck, because the particular dashboard that's there doesn't give them the kinds of slicing and dicing that they need to be able to answer the question, or they don't know how to slice and dice within the tool to do that. And largely, if you think about this is kind of bridging the gap by an AI enabling these technologies. We're almost replacing the need for these tools like ThoughtSpot or Narrative Science or Aria, that were add-on technologies before LLMs came along, where you would be able to separately buy separate technologies to generate a narrative, or with ThoughtSpot to do sort of self-service discovery through your data. Largely, these technologies are now getting wrapped up into the core BI tools that are being used, and are just part of the package that you're using in the experience. So that's the step that the BI tools themselves support. And so once you've gotten to the analyze stage, AI can help you in this very tangible way to get your answers. But that's really just Basecamp 3, right? How do you get there? Users have to be able to make through those other steps in order to be able to do that analysis. Well, that's where the business intelligence portal comes in place. So let me talk for a moment, before we kind of get into the AI aspect of things, about what the enterprise portal does, because there may be some of you on the call here that are not familiar with the notion of enterprise BI portal, so that you can see kind of how it covers those other base camps that we talked about. Right. So if you think about your environment, if you have BI tools, you have application, you've got data. Maybe you have data catalog where your definitions of information of key terms and the things that give context of data, lineage, etc. They all reside there. And of course, you've got your Active Directory LDAP system for security. The enterprise catalog connects, or enterprise portal connects to everything in your environment, your BI tools, your application, your data. It then through a plugin infrastructure, it then brings in content through an auto-sync process, so that you can publish all the content that you have in your BI catalog, all the relevant content, not obsolete, gets published, and it gets. But before it does that, it gets integrated with your data catalog, so that if you have any kind of terminology, glossary terms, lineage, all that is wrapped into the information that's available to users for context. There's usually a publishing, a certification workflow where you mindfully are publishing content, so you're not just taking all of the junk that you synced over from your BI tool. You're getting rid of the duplicative content. You're getting rid of the reports that are not, let's say, measure the same thing but slightly differently. You're making sure that that's all uniform, then it has the right metadata, and then with that, then you're publishing it into the actual BI catalog, where it's available to users from a cataloging experience to search and discover their content in a secure way, or in a way that's synced to your existing LDAP and Active Directory system, right? And then from there, you now present this information to users, and that can happen at the desktop, via browser. It can happen in mobile. It can be distributed via email. It can come in via Slack or Teams. The point being that once you've got this information, it needs to be accessible to everyone, everywhere that they need to find it. And that this is conceptually whatever tool you use, whether you use Metric Insights or build your own technology or use some other technology for this, it is the same sort of idea that you would need to follow in order to create a functioning high-value catalog for your users. So as a next step, let me hand this over to Mike, and he'll give you a little bit of a demo so you can kind of see how what I'm talking about works, and then as well as talk a little bit about AI capabilities in that, as an example in our technology, what's available today, and then we'll talk a little bit about future, taking it to the next step as well.
Yeah, thanks, Marius. So yeah, as Marius said, I'm gonna quickly, for those that haven't seen it, give you a quick demo of kind of what we're doing today with the catalog and the Metric Insights portal, just sort of to tee up and make it more obvious how AI is being factored into that. But as Marius said, the premise of our platform is we can go out and connect to any source of reporting or analytics or metrics within the organization and start publishing that into a central place so that we remove that sort of initial barrier of people having to understand which technologies they need to go to and which areas in those technologies they need to go to hunt for reports. So what you're looking at here is the Metric Insights catalog, accessing it in this case through the browser. Each of these tiles in the middle is a particular asset, i.e. a particular report or dashboard or spreadsheet or metric that we've taken through that publishing process that Marius touched on to put it into this catalog. And as part of that process, if we pick on this sales analysis tile here from Tableau, as he also mentioned, we're publishing in this in a way that has the necessary context that will explain to the user that, yes, this is the report they should be looking at, and here's ultimately what it means and what it's telling them. So as I preview this particular tile, we're obviously picking up a name and description for the tile. We're picking up an image of what it looks like right now. So this is an up-to-date image of what the dashboard looks like. But we're layering on any additional metadata that might be interesting to the users. And that's everything from sort of ownership, who's responsible for it, who, if I need to, I can ask questions of things like when did it last get updated? What's the engagement with the report? How many, how popular is it, and how many other people are looking at it? And things like glossary terms. So, for the metrics that we have within this report, how they defined, how they calculated, who's responsible for those calculations and definitions. And so, in a glance, as a user, I can scan this. If I've stumbled across this sales analysis report, I can understand, what it is and what it's trying to tell me. And when we publish a report, we're also typically giving it a level of certification, which is this gold check mark here, that says, it has been through a particular process, a particular level of scrutiny, if you like. And in this case, we've stamped it with a gold certification to give users the confidence that, what they're looking at is the correct version of this report. It's not an obsolete version. It's not a duplicative version. This is the blessed report, if you like, that I should be accessing. If a user clicks on that within the portal, obviously then we want to take them into the live dashboard. So in this case, we're signing them in behind the scenes to Tableau. I've got access to the live Tableau dashboard in the back here. I've got all the metadata that we spoke about around the top, including things like documentation, including things like lineage, if we have it. And so, as a user, I didn't even really need to know this was a Tableau portal that I was looking at. I'm just accessing it through the BI portal here. And that goes for whatever the technology is. So whether I'm looking at Tableau, whether I'm perhaps accessing something from Power BI, the only difference really is what's getting rendered in the middle and the tool, if you like, that I'm interacting with in the middle. That also goes for things like documents and spreadsheets, PDFs, that sort of things. So if you have big SharePoint sites out there or a lot of stuff up on file stores, the ability to be able to publish that in the same way at the end of the day, this is BI quote unquote as well. I can do that. I can manage versions of documents, that sort of thing, but ultimately give users access to everything in one place. So the idea is that we publish content into this portal so that users have one place to come and find it. We organize it in a single category structure down the left-hand side here. So again, what we're trying to achieve here is to remove that initial barrier of discovering content. So I want users to really have one place to come, but also one hierarchy to navigate to find the things that they're interested in. Today I would have to understand, the site and project structure in Tableau, what work groups are available in workspaces available in Power BI, what the folder structure is up on SharePoint if I wanted to find things. Well, we want to make it easy and put it for users in a single hierarchy. And so ultimately they have one place to come and find content. Ultimately, they are only going to see things that they have access to and that they can discover within the solution. So that's kind of the basis for the catalog that we've been talking about. A key component of this today is the concept of being able to search through that catalog. And today, what we do, if I put in a search term here, is, it's kind of a Google style experience, if you like. So we recommend common search terms as you're typing. We recommend down the bottom here, common content that users are looking for associated with those search terms. We're actually doing some basic natural language processing against these search terms to pull out the keywords that we're interested in. But if I run this search and I look for sales analysis, effectively what we're doing is we are searching through the catalog of content that we just spoke about. So we're looking through all the metadata and all the fields that we're capturing or adding to the reports and dashboards that we're bringing in. And we're obviously highlighting when we find those search terms, and based on a ranking algorithm, we're ranking the results to our best capability to hopefully bubble up to the top the most relevant content that you might be looking at. So in this case, I've searched for sales analysis. We're looking in the titles, the descriptions, the tags, the categories, anything that we've pulled in as metadata into the solution, and again ranking that. And similar to a Google style experience, I might get tens or hundreds of results here, but what you're relying on in this sort of search is that the most relevant stuff is going to bubble up onto that first page. And then obviously I can go through and filter out by all of the metadata that we've been talking about. So maybe I am just interested in looking at the content from Tableau, or just the things that have been certified, or just the things that are for internal use within the organization, and I can drill into that and hopefully quickly find what I'm interested in. So that is, that's sort of the table stakes here around what we're doing from a catalog perspective within the Metric Insights portal. There's a lot more beyond that, but that's kind of the foundational piece for solving those first two phases of the climb that Mario spoke about, of being able to get content in one place and catalog it in a way that gives users context to understand what's going on there. If I just jump back to the slides here quickly, let's start to talk now about how AI can today enhance that portal experience, that first couple of stages of the climb that we spoke about. And I want to focus on particularly that search capability that I just ended with. So as I mentioned when we were going through the demo there, search today in our product is that Google style experience. It can often come back with with many pages of results, but if we are if we kind of have a sense that there's something out there that we're looking for and we know roughly what it is, it will typically bubble that up to the top of the pile, and I'll be able to access that fairly quickly. So it's really optimized around quick access to things that I have a suspicion are out there already, or that I've seen before. I just can't remember where they are. What search isn't really optimized around is more of a sort of recommendation or suggestive type experience where I don't really know what content is out there, but I know I'm trying to discover content. I'm trying to answer particular questions. And really what I want is a very targeted set of recommendations or suggestions that might help me answer that particular question. And so what we've introduced and are introducing into the platform is this idea of a concierge. And obviously you can relate this to the analogy of a hotel concierge. So, what are my options today if I go and visit a new country or city? I can get online, or I can look at the guidebooks, and I can do my own research around the information that I can uncover to decide, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to see, where I'm going to eat when I go and visit that city. And my my results are very restricted to what it is I'm able to uncover in the research that I'm doing. Alternatively, when I get to the hotel, I can go and see a concierge where we can have a back and forth conversation utilizing their knowledge, their up-to-date knowledge of what's happening in the area and what's going on and what exists now. And through a back and forth conversation, come back with a much more targeted set of recommendations that will help me do what I want to do on my trip. And we want to bring that concierge experience to the concept of search and discovery of BI in the organization. So that concierge works in line with the portal and the catalog that you were just looking at. It's powered behind the scenes with an LLM, and we'll talk more about this today. It's linking into ChatGPT, and that is working with the metadata that we've spoken about, with the security to make sure it's obviously persisting permissions and stuff around content. And it's available obviously through the portal, but also is going to be available through things like collaboration tools where I can ask questions directly from Slack or Teams, or made available through an API to other applications. So maybe we have a centralized chat interface that we're building for the organization, and I should be able to ask questions of BI within that. But again, the idea behind the concierge is that it will give users a much more targeted and recommendations-based experience with access to the content within the portal. So let's jump across to the demo again and look at some of this in action. So when I come into the concierge, obviously similar to search, I can start asking questions around BI and around the content that we have. And so I come into a page here. We can prompt it with some common questions that we think people might be interested in. I'm just going to pick a couple of these right now. This is going against the same catalog that we spoke about before, that we looked at in the initial demo. But maybe initially I'm an analyst within the organization. I've just come in, I've joined the business, and I'm interested in understanding, what marketing reports. I'm responsible for creating analytics in the marketing group. What marketing reports have been produced today based on the particular data source that I'm interested in. So in this case, we have metadata showing the source and lineage of all the assets within the catalog, and I know some of them are based around the the sales data mart that I'm responsible for. And so I want to understand what content is being created there. What's happening is it's obviously interpreting the intention behind that question. It's going back and searching into the metadata of the reports that I have access to, and it's showing me, you know, a selection of reports that have been built from that metadata. On the right hand side here, it's building up a carousel of what those reports are. So a tile-based view similar to what you saw in the catalog. And obviously I can flip through these. And if there's something I want to look at in more detail, I can drill into those particular reports and get taken to the same area as before, that we saw in the initial demo. So I can start these conversations with the concierge on the left-hand side here. You know, maybe I have further questions like what are the certified marketing reports? You know, if I'm interested in seeing, you know, which ones have been given those stamps of approvals that we spoke about before, and getting results. In this case, I guess none of these have been certified yet, but I can start to continue that conversation with the concierge. So that's more from a sort of analyst perspective. You know, if it was more from an end user perspective, you know, can you maybe suggest some? I'm new to the organization and the sales team. You know, can you suggest some sales reports that I should be looking at that you know, that are popular within the organization? And again, it's going to go out and bring me back a targeted set of recommendations based around, you know, what we might be interested in looking at as it relates to sales. So search and recommendations and suggestions are one area, but also then drilling into sort of some of the functional aspects of the portal as well. We can use the concierge to help with that. So, you know, maybe once I've got these results, I might want to understand, I might be new to the portal here. Yeah, I might want to understand how to receive that daily sales analysis report that we see up there in my email as sort of a subscription. So if I ask that question, in this case, again, what the concierge is doing is in this case, it's recognizing that perhaps here I'm not actually searching for content here. I'm asking a question around the capabilities of the platform and how I might, in this case, subscribe to a particular report via email. It's actually going into our help documentation here, in this case, and bringing me back details around how I might set up a burst, as we call it, where I can, excuse me, subscribe to this content and yes, receive it in my email and give me some guidance on that. And again, I can continue that conversation. So, you know, maybe I'm interested in saying, can I set up a different schedule to receive that burst? So maybe I want to adjust the schedule to set it up on a particular time to come to me. And again, it can give me some guidance around that and suggest how I might do that. So, yeah, a quick look at how, you know, AI is being introduced into that portal experience, you know, to better refine the discovery process that might help users in uncovering the content, answering the business questions that they might have, and then starting to pull that towards usage of the functionality within the application as well. And I'm going to pass it back to Marius now to talk a little bit about how we're expanding in this area around the functionality of the tool as well.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for the demo. Let's take a look now at sort of a little bit more. Now we've seen kind of what's there, and let's sort of talk about what's coming in near future. What kind of capabilities are we looking at, and doing that? And you saw in the case in the Mike's example, that the concierge was acting as a guide, to find the right content. It was also acting as a mechanism by which you could ask questions and get those answered about how to do things. And so really simplifying that journey for the user, giving them the path to get from as they go to up that mountain, right? So the next sort of logical step in that progression is really to start helping the user perform actions that they might need to want to do with the visualizations that they have. So for example, here I have a question: can you recommend a report? Same things you saw, Mike, the dashboard category level. Maybe you have a follow-up question there. And then the next thing you might want to do is here on the right, you want to say, well, I want to go ahead and subscribe me to this, or share this with another user, or set up an alert. So let's look at each of these flows. So for example, you might want to say, I want to be subscribed to this. And it will ask you, well, do you want clarifying questions, right? It's a concierge. So that unlike having to go to a UI and fill a bunch of boxes in, you just tell it, well, you can suggest when you want to be receiving it. Do you want to receive this via your weekly reporting digest every Friday at 8 a.m.? No, you can say, no, I'd send it to me via Slack on Monday morning, right? And then it can just set up that schedule for you to be sent up via Slack. So this would be an example of doing distribution. Right? Again, I don't have to know where in the UI to go do this, set up a bunch of controls. I can just indicate my intention to the concierge, and then it makes this intelligent suggestion as to what you might want to do vis-a-vis distribution. If you can then correct that suggestion, and then it will go and execute that on your behalf, much like a concierge in a hotel will make a reservation for you. So then another example might be to say, well, what if I say I want to share with another user? So it's not, I don't want to subscribe, but I want to share this. Then you can say, well, okay, who do you want to share this information with? And what message do you want to include? And you can say, okay, send this to Mike Smith and tell him to check these numbers against the latest forecast. And the system should, take a snapshot of that dashboard, put it in an email, put your request in it, and send that off to the user automatically. So that's another kind of notification action that we would be able to expect in the near future the concierge to be able to do. And then final example would be to set up an alert. Like let's say you've seen this dashboard, you're really interested in this data, but you don't want to have to come back and check it every day, and instead you want to say, I want to give me an alert. You might say, well, what's the alert condition that you want? You say, well, I want to send me an alert if the sales in Canada drops unexpectedly, right? Then I know I need to look at this dashboard because I really care about Canada, which is one of the filter values in this dashboard. Then in that case, concierge should be able to go configure an alert for you, figure out what an unexpected drop might look like as a starting point, and then schedule that to come out and be sent to you via email. So these sort of activities that keep users engaged with the analytic, that are all things that are enabled by Portal already. And the way that AI is going to come into play is that it can automate the process by which you set them up as a user, so that you don't need to manage complex user interfaces, know where to navigate in an application, do it. You can just, with your intention, your text, you can tell it what you want to do, and then it performs the actions. You might qualify it or make adjustments, but essentially it is doing that action for you behind the scenes.
I think, Marius, what's critical in sort of as you're doing that last step there, and what's critical for this to be effective is it's also got knowledge of the metadata behind the scenes. So for example, when you asked to subscribe to that first result, it already recognized that you had what was it, a daily or a weekly digest coming out to you, right? Should you add it to that? Or it understands from the metadata that the sales analysis report is a daily report, therefore it can make a suggestion around what an unusual value might be around the 30-day moving average, right? So having that link to the metadata is sort of the critical piece of this to automate those pieces of functionality that exist today, but that you have to manually put in when you set this stuff up.
That's a great point. Like in that, even in that example where it suggested that it sends it to me at 9 a.m.,
Yeah.
you're counting on a smart concierge to look and know when is it that these things typically update. And I'm going to send you this report once it's already updated. And I'm going to suggest 9 because I know it completes by 8 a.m., things of that nature. So thank you, Mike, for clarifying that. Okay, so as a summary before we get into questions, really think about this as the journey, and self-service being kind of helping. Using AI in this journey relies on it affecting in different parts of the journey. So if at the very top of the mountain, when you're analyzing the data, it's all about the AI that you have inside of your business intelligence tool, and to what extent that AI can help your users make sense of the visualizations that were created and the data that's there, or self-service to create their own custom visualizations from that particular data set. But as you move down further below that, in order to get to that stage, you're really relying on the BI portal. And there, you're looking for AI to act as that Sherpa, as that concierge that will help your users guide you through the right path, make the right recommendations, make sure that you're discovering the right content, that you're understanding that content via the enhanced metadata that's there, and providing it all in context for your users. And therefore, then when they go to a particular dashboard or report to do their analysis, they're picking the right dashboard, and they're picking it with a confidence of understanding what is the data in that dashboard. How does it work? What are the rules? Who's the owner? Is it certified? All the things that are important in order to be able to then perform the analysis with a high level of confidence. And through these various layers of AI at the various stages, the hope, the goal here is really to continuously chip away at this promise of self-service, where more and more of the Sherpa that's helping you up the mountain is the AI, rather than that having to be the analyst, right? So that the analyst can really focus on the high value business of doing real deep dive analysis and things that regular users might not realize or find through the regular reports. So with that,
Let's
go ahead, Mike.
yeah, let's look at some. So a few questions have come in. If anyone has any more, please enter them in the Q&A window. In fact, the few that have come in, well, let's answer this one that just came in as well. Is this available in the 7.x release, Marius? Maybe do you want to talk about the release schedule on this?
Yeah. So what's the Metric Insights is what you've seen. We have a beta version of the concierge that is available in the release that just shipped with Metric Insights. It has in fact, Mike, the demo that he was doing was off of that version, so that has the capability of searching for content. It also has the capability for doing documentation type searches. If you're interested in that, if you're already a Metric Insights customer, or you want to pilot it, just reach out to us, and we're happy to do that. In the version 7 of Metric Insights that we are planning on releasing soon, there's a beta version of Metric Insights that's coming at the end of the next year, this year, excuse me, and then this year, and then the production version of Metric Insights, which is in Q1 of this coming year of 2024. In that version, of course, the concierge will be in there, and it will be in production. There's also going to be another version of concierge, another version of our 6th branch that we're shipping in Q1, and we expect to have the concierge in production there as well.
There's a few questions here, Marius, that are all the same theme, unsurprisingly, I guess, around sort of security and moving data to the cloud to be able to leverage these LLMs. Again, we got 2 or 3 questions on that. Maybe let's address that topic a bit.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So I think it's a natural hesitancy. Most organizations have concerns around moving data and into the cloud, and specifically using LLMs, cloud-based LLMs, because there can be data leakage into those LLMs, and the security teams are concerned about that. So from our perspective, there are several things that we're doing to address that. First, we are only passing metadata, so we're not ever, as we talked about earlier, we're not really doing a analyzing data through our AI. That's something we're relying on the BI tool AI to do. We're simply, telling the AI about the report. So in that regard, that can make it easier for to get approval, because you're not passing PI information, you're not passing any data of any sensitivity. You're just, there's the names of reports, which ones are certified and things of that nature. So that could be easier for you to get approval. If it's not possible to do that, as Mike mentioned earlier, while it's not available in the beta version that we have now, that requires an OpenAI integration, either directly through OpenAI or through Microsoft, via the Azure ecosystem. If you're not able to get that approved, even for just metadata passing, then we will have we do plan on having a solution that is going to be entirely behind the firewall, that relies on capabilities that are running inside of your network. So that is going to be possible. And we can talk about that in more detail with anyone who's interested in it. But so if you're completely locked down, you'll still be able to take advantage of these capabilities next year, once we deploy our solution that runs inside your network.
There's a question here just generally on the portal. Companies are consolidating BI platforms, want to have a single source of truth. In this scenario, how effective will this be when you have a single BI platform? So I think it depends. I'll go at this, and then Marius, feel free to jump in. I think it depends somewhat on. I think there's a couple of answers to this, right? Even if you're standardizing on a single BI platform, in the traditional sense of the word, I would ask whether you have things like documents and spreadsheets and sort of the that aspect of BI as well that needs to be organized in a similar way. If you do, then a portal can be very valuable. I would say what is the scale of what you're trying to do as well. We have some customers who maybe Tableau is their tool of choice, but they actually have multiple Tableau servers across the organization, and the big companies, and they users would have to know where to go and which server to look at to be able to access content. So if the scale of the problem is big, then even if it's a single BI tool, then it can still be very helpful and effective. One area that we didn't look at today, and if there's interest, reach out to us. The person who asked this question is, we have this concept of really customizing the user experience and the user interface and the journey that users have with BI through the portal as well, bringing in things like metric summaries that drive them to particular dashboards or reports that they should be looking at when certain events are happening in the data. So in some cases, the overall journey with BI as well can be can make it a meaningful reason to have a portal in place. I don't know whether you'd add anything to that, Marius.
The only thing I would add is that because we have quite a few customers that have single BI tool that they use predominantly, and even apart from the user generated content that Mike mentioned, if you look at what's in those BI tools at scale, right? In large organizations, there's just a lot of cruft in there, right? Just a lot of things that are just obsolete or duplicative, or multiple variations on the same thing that are slightly different with different definitions. The metadata that you've got collected in there, it tends to be pretty sparse. It's oftentimes in a data catalog, or it's in spreadsheets or someplace else. It's not integrated with the experience. And so the journey, whether it's multiple BI tools or a single one that we discussed today, it's still just as difficult, right? Obviously, more BI tools makes it even harder. You have to remember with Power BI and Tableau. But even if I have everything in Power BI or everything in Tableau, I still have to know, what object do I find and look at, and then the experience of navigating and finding that. If that's difficult, I'm not going to use the analytic. So, and if you think about the future, right? If you kind of put yourself in the mind of what are people going to expect, especially with these generative AI experiences that are coming in today, they're using every day as consumers, they're going to expect more and more that they don't need to go into a complex interface and search through stuff, right? I don't know how you guys are, but like for me, ever since the ChatGPT, I seldom, when I do research, I will seldom go to Google. I will use ChatGPT because with the big integration, it will go and it'll find the right information, summarize it, deliver it, and then you kind of go and verify it. And in maybe some specific exceptions, you might go sort of deep dive, but you're not that experience of go get me the relevant information, summarize it, give it to me so that I can know exactly where to go, make it easy for me, is something that's being built into our DNA now that these solutions are out there. And so I think, whether it's single or multiple BI tools almost doesn't matter. You've got to be really thinking about how are you going to deliver an experience to your users that fits into that model in the future.
Okay, well, we're coming to the end here. Looking through the questions, I think we've got to them all. If there's any we haven't, we'll follow up afterwards. But thanks to everyone who joined today. Hopefully this was interesting. If there are any additional questions, we'll follow up. But thanks for your time. Look out for some new webinars from us in the new year. Thanks,
Thanks,
Marius.
everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Mike.